Hello there, and welcome to How to Graciously Engage and Disengage from Conversations with Members. Now, before we go into the program, I'd like you to think about a scenario at your club where you are walking through the club and you say hello to a member and you ask how they are and they start talking and it just goes on and on and on. And 10 minutes later, you realize you're still talking and haven't gotten to where you want to go. And so this is the kind of thing that we're talking about. Sometimes those members who really monopolize our time. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the staff people that just are really uncomfortable with engaging. So we'll talk about how to engage and disengage from conversations with members. So we have a couple of different scenarios here. We have that typical scenario. I'll give you an example. I was talking with a client of mine who we were talking about training staff to engage more with members, and she was concerned because one of her staff people was talking with a member on the treadmill for 25 minutes. And she said, that's not what I want to have happen. I said, well, let's think about this. First of all, does the staff know that 25 minutes is not okay? Have we kind of defined a little bit of visiting time in terms of what's going to work? And then second, how do we know that that member just was not letting go and that member was not monopolizing that staff person's time, and the staff person didn't know how to graciously say, I'm sorry, I've got to leave. So they just stood there because they think that's the right thing to do. So that's a typical scenario. Another scenario, as we spoke just a moment ago, is a staff person who is a highly introverted staff person and they are just so uncomfortable or perhaps feel like it's inappropriate to go up and talk to people and feel like they're interrupting them, or they have tried to talk with people before and the members just didn't even want to talk. The members just kind of wanted to do their own thing. They didn't want to be involved with anybody. So these are the kind of type of situations we're going to handle. Before we go into these and the solutions for these, what I'd like you to think about are the following points. That all of our efforts should be to positively impact retention of both staff and members. So staff, in that, we want them to develop a higher skill level, higher social skill level than they've ever had before, and know how to engage with all different types of members, not just members within their own generation, or not just members that they like or have a relationship with, but really be able to get out there and have a conversation with anybody. That's part of what we do in a club. And it's also critical that when we do that, that does affect our member retention, because the member feels recognized, they feel like they're a part of something as opposed to apart from something. So it's critical that we have staff feeling a sense of joy and not dread about engaging with members. Let's talk about how to do that. The ideal situation is that every staff person is demonstrating their primary purpose regularly. And if you remember the program, if you have watched it, perhaps you have not viewed it yet, called The True Role of the Staff Member, one of the key points in that program is talking about the primary purpose versus the secondary purpose. I'm not going to go into that. I want you to watch the program. Let's talk about the primary purpose only here. And that is for every staff person, regardless of what position or department they work in, their primary purpose is to deepen and create relationships with members that they do know and do not yet know that will add a sense of value to their membership, enhance their sense of belonging and their sense of community within the club. So it's critical that our staff people understand this and they recognize that this is expected of them every day, that this is not a request, but it's a requirement of their position. This is their primary purpose. So it's the ideal situation is that every staff person is demonstrating this regularly. So in addition to the ideal situation, for it to happen, there needs to be training, frequency, and penetration. And what I mean by that is we can't just expect that this is genetic with some of our staff people. It's not. We have some staff people that are very chatty and know exactly how to start a conversation and when to end a conversation. We have some staff people that don't have any idea how to go out there and start a conversation that seems comfortable or seems natural and doesn't feel forced. So it takes training on our part. So this is something that we as managers have to spend some time with. The frequency, it has to be every day. It has to be practiced every day on a regular basis. And penetration means that we have to be out there talking to a lot of members. Not just a couple every day, but a lot. Not just the same ones we know all the time, but all of them. So we have to set up some guidelines for this ideal situation to occur. Remember the training, the frequency, and the penetration. I also encourage you, as a manager, to view the program called SBWA, Your Way to Sales Success. Don't be fooled by that moniker. SBWA, Your Way to Sales Success. There's a lot of good content in there in terms of the structure and how to train your staff and what to expect in terms of goals for each staff person and getting out and talking to members on a daily basis. So I highly encourage you to view that program as well. All right. Now, the staff really needs to have an understanding of just how much time really should be spent with each member. We talked about that example earlier of the staff member who spent 25 minutes talking with a member on the treadmill. That's a little too much time. It's a little too much time for the staff person because they're not doing the other parts of their job. So let's define it as talking with members for 3 to 5 minutes at a time. And that way, when we just do 3 to 5 minutes at a time, or perhaps even less sometimes, the member will welcome us coming around as opposed to look the other way when we come around in avoidance. All right, so let's talk about the super chatty member and how to disengage after 3 to 5 minutes. So you have this member that just is going on and on and on. There's no punctuation perhaps in the conversation whatsoever. It's just an ongoing sentence that just keeps coming out. And so your staff person might say, Martha, you are always so interesting. I'm so sorry to say that I have to step away. Is there other members I need to visit with today as well? I look forward to catching up with you tomorrow or sometime later in the week though. Have a great workout. How simple is that? That's all we need to do is just interrupt briefly and say, Martha, I'm sorry to interrupt. You are always so interesting. And I'm so sorry to say that I've got to step away because there are some other members that I need to visit with today. So I will look forward to catching up with you later. Have a terrific workout. Very, very simple. Direct, simple, and then we just walk away. Now, here's a couple things to think about when we coach our staff people on how to say things. Our demeanor and our tone. Did you notice that there was a smile on my face? There was not a sense of making her feel guilty for anything that she had done or monopolizing my time. There's also not a sense of me feeling guilty at all about saying this. I should not feel guilty. It's my job to go and talk with all members, not just one member. So we have to be really, really clear about that. We also have to always be kind. We may know that we have a member who is constantly wanting to talk with us, but we can never be nasty or we can never be demeaning to that member. We're always kind with that member. We always want to make them feel important. All right, so let's also address your concerns about egging interesting Martha on by saying she's interesting. Some of your staff might think, I don't want to say that because that'll only encourage her. Well, we have to understand that really we are the ones who are in control. So when Martha's talking with us, she's on her treadmill or she's on her bicycle. We're the ones that can walk away, but we just need to give a gracious entrance to be able to exit, so to speak. All right, so you might be thinking, well, yeah, but what happens if I'm trapped at the desk? And I'm working at the desk and Martha comes up and wants to talk. We say the same thing. If Martha keeps occupying our time, we say, Martha, you know, you always have the best stories. I love visiting with you, but I have got to say there's some other projects I've got to get taken care of today before my shift ends. So I'm going to have to say goodbye and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much for coming in today. That's it. That's simple. All righty. So let's talk about the highly introverted staff person in terms of getting them out a little bit more to really engage with members. So we're talking about disengaging with interesting Martha. Now we'll talk about engaging a little bit more. First, we need to require, not request, that they speak with a certain number of members every day. We need to require, not request, I hope you see the difference there, that they speak with a certain number of new members that they have not met yet every day. There's a distinction there between the members we know and the ones we don't know. So this would denote that we set goals for our staff in terms of how many conversations they need to have throughout the course of the day. And when I say require, not request, if we want this to be part of our signature of service at the club, where we make members feel a part of as opposed to a part from, then yes, it's up to every staff person, not negotiable, not just the ones who love to do it, but every staff person needs to get upskilled to that level that we expect as a part of our organization. All right. So train them on the talking points so that they feel more comfortable. Talking points might be how they introduce themselves to members, how they open a conversation. Maybe they're walking through the cardio area and they're taking an armful of magazines, or they have a pitcher of water that they're refilling water bottles with, and they simply ask someone, can I refill your water bottle for you? And then while they're refilling it, they might say something like, I don't think we've met yet. I see you a lot in the club. My name's Karen Woodard. I'm one of the trainers here in the club, and you are? How's your workout going today? So train them on those simple things. Train them on the events that are coming up in the club, programs, new programs that we can talk with members about if that member does seem to be receptive and really want to talk, or if there's an event or a party coming up that we want to invite members to, that is such a congenial and warm thing to do, to have staff people go out and say, have you been invited? Has anyone talked to you about our party that's coming up next week? I want to make sure that you come to that. So make sure that we're training them on that. Now, we also have to train staff on how to be intuitive and recognize when someone is not receptive and they really don't want to talk, and that's absolutely okay. It's absolutely okay if somebody doesn't want to talk to us. But what's not okay is for our staff to believe that every member is like that, because there are more members who want to engage than there are those who don't. All right. So what we have to recognize, we have to get our staff to recognize, is that by them going out and engaging, that they're offering a higher level of service in the club. So let's talk about some simple tools as we wrap this up. First, train the staff on how to do these points. Remember that SBWA program? I encourage you to view that. Practice it. This is the type of thing that you don't just do once in a meeting, but you do this before shifts start. Get staff to practice. You might go up to a staff person that you know is somewhat introverted, and you might say, okay, so tell me what you're going to go out and talk with members about today. Let's say that I'm a new member that you haven't met yet. How would you do that? Or let's say I'm somebody that you do know. Show me how you would do that. So make sure you're practicing it. This is not just once and we forget about it. This has to stay in the forefront of every staff person's mind, and that's the manager's job, is to manage how this happens. So again, remember, this is not genetic. It's something that gets trained with people. It's something that gets practiced. For some people it's genetic, but not for every staff person. And so what we also have to recognize is that those chatty members, that will happen frequently. And so we can't practice avoidance. We can't practice not talking with them because we don't know how to disengage with them. It's critical that we are comfortable enough to go up to them and say, hello there, Martha, how's your day going today? And chat with her a little bit, listen, and then know when you need to disengage from the conversation graciously. So what is critical here is that we master the art of brief conversations with members that make them feel recognized, make them feel a part of, not apart from the club, and that you took the time to really spend with them and make them feel special. That is what will affect your retention of both staff and members. Thank you so much for listening.